The scale and seriousness of the situation that we have inherited cannot be underestimated. Together, the hole in our public finances this year, which recurs every year, the compensation schemes that they did not fund, and their failure to assess the scale of the challenges facing our public services means that this budget raises taxes by £40 billion.
That was British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves in the House of Commons today, painting a dire picture for the country's taxpayers. Britain is in for higher taxes. She placed the blame for the bad news on preceding governments under the Conservative Party, which held power for 14 years until it lost this July's election to the Labour Party. Rachel Reeves is the first woman to hold the finance minister's post, which is known in the UK as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Here you see her on Sunday with the traditional red case that the Chancellor uses to present the budget in Parliament. DW correspondent Begot Mar is following the story for us in London. Begot, the UK is in for a tax hike. What can people there expect?
A tax hike mainly for employers because national insurance contribution of employers will rise. So that, some organizations say, will possibly dampen the job market because employers could possibly pass it on and then maybe not increase the wages as people would have liked to. However, if you are on a minimum wage, first of all, this is going to be good news because the minimum wage actually is rising. So it's really a mixed picture when it comes to taxes.
Now, this is Labour's first budget after being out of government for nearly a decade and a half. Remind us, why did Labour win such a landslide against the Conservatives?
Well, first of all, it's been such a long time that the Conservatives have been in power, 14 years, and that's an incredibly long time. So you do see in politics that after one party has formed the government that there is an appetite for change. There were more factors, though. It wasn't just that. The Conservatives presided over many crises. First of all, obviously, the very chaotic Brexit years that took such a long time, took years to unravel the relationship with the European Union. Then, of course, also the COVID pandemic and then the war in Ukraine. So people were really hoping for more stability. And that's why they gave Keir Starmer and his Labour Party such a big majority in Parliament. So he really has a very stable majority. And this budget, there will be no problem that he can see through all these policy ideas that he and his team that they have.
Right, so the voters were tired of the Conservatives. Now that the Labour government has been in power for 100 odd days, how would you characterise its start?
It's been interesting because even though there had been this big landslide victory and trust put into Starmer and his government, it's been a bit of a rocky start. I think that's probably not exactly an exaggeration. There have been some not huge crises, but mini crises. For example, when Keir Starmer and his team, it came out that they had accepted fairly lavish hospitality like clothing and also tickets to concert, to a Taylor Swift concert. That really did not go down well with voters because Starmer had painted himself as the new brush, so to speak, somebody who's maybe a bit boring, maybe a little bit bureaucratic, which is what the British people didn't seem to mind, but also somebody who is very honest and somebody who's a contrast to, if you will, Team Boris Johnson that were partying in Downing Street during the pandemic, which is something that people really did not want. They wanted to have this break from the perception of chaos. And then Starmer came, and then there was this, not exactly good start with these, clothing and hospitality scandals. On top of that, they also really dampened the mood in the last weeks and months when they were constantly seemingly talking about this black hole, this fiscal hole that they said they only discovered when they were in government. So they painted a very bleak picture of the finances. And That's not what business is and also what consumers wanted. They wanted a fresh start. They wanted some hope. They wanted something to work towards to, and they didn't want to hear all this doom and gloom. And I think with this budget today, they were trying to get away a little bit from the doom and gloom. Yes, tax hikes on one hand, but also investment. So they were basically trying to paint a picture of turning the economy around by borrowing more. Also this, a break with the Conservatives, with the past, and then having really quite a lot of investment in infrastructure, in rail infrastructure, in new housing, also in green initiatives like new hydrogen projects. So they are trying to say we are moving forward and we are trying to grow the economy with all this investment.
So despite that doom and gloom, as you say, has Keir Starmer given a sense of where he wants to take the country domestically and internationally?
Well, domestically, this is clearly where he wants to get to. Britain as a clean energy superpower, that's one of the slogans that he has been mentioning, and that also came through in the budget today. And basically trying to reconnect again with the voters with his idea of growth and growing the economy. That's, I think, really the biggest venture when it comes to domestics. Also to look at public services, new investment in schools and teaching, new teachers, and also tackling the problem with the ailing health system that Britain has, like many other European countries, it's fair to say. So investment also in the health service, that I think also domestically is very important. Now, when we look internationally, I wouldn't say that as a huge break with the past when it comes, for example, towards the war in Ukraine. Starmer is more or less, there's a continuity if you compare his politics with the last government of Rishi Sunak. Where he does represent something new is the reset with the European Union. That's something that Keir Starmer and his team have mentioned again and again. Just today we've seen a delegation, quite a high-power delegation from the European Parliament in London, and they told us journalists that it does matter, this reset and this intention of the new government, and that they do negotiate with them in good faith. However, this does not mean that Britain will rejoin the European Union. That definitely is not on the cards. But both sides are basically trying to figure out, without rejoining the Union or the single market, how close can the cooperation get? For example, also what will there be foreign defense policy, security? That's all these are new pathways where both sides are looking at.
Thank you very much for your analysis. That's DW correspondent Begot Mar in London.